August 15, 1977. A radio telescope in Ohio swept a patch of sky it had swept hundreds of times before. No one was watching. The IBM 1130 processed the data automatically. The line printer stamped out its columns. The paper folded into a pile on the floor. Nobody looked. 3 days later, a volunteer sat down at his kitchen table with a batch of printouts and a red pen. He was not a salaried researcher. He had helped write the software that processed the telescope's output. He knew exactly what the numbers were supposed to look like. A column of 1s and 2s, maybe a 3, page after page. The National Science Foundation had pulled its primary grant in 1973. Ohio State kept the telescope alive for SETI work on donated time. No salaries, no full-time staff. The telescope itself could not move. It was a fixed meridian transit reflector. The sky moved past it as Earth rotated. Any point in the sky drifted through its beam for exactly 72 seconds. The receiver output was encoded in a simple alphanumeric scale. A quiet sky read as 1s and 2s. A strong signal climbed into letters. A was 10, Z was 35. In all the years of the Ohio Sky Survey, the columns almost never left the single digits. A low murmur of background noise, the universe doing nothing in particular. Then Eamon saw it. 6 characters in channel 2, not 1s and 2s, not even a letter in the low range. The sequence read 6, E, Q, U, J, 5. The letter U stood for a signal-to-noise ratio of approximately 30 times louder than the background. Nothing in years of Ohio Sky Survey data had produced anything like it. Eamon later told the Cleveland Plain dealer, "Without thinking, I wrote, wow. It was the most significant thing we had seen." He was not at a telescope console. He was at his kitchen table, alone, days after the fact. The shape of those 6 characters was not random. It was a curve, low, then climbing, reaching U at the peak, then falling back. Astronomers called it a Gaussian profile. That shape is what you get when a point source drifts through a fixed antenna beam. Not an aircraft, not interference bouncing off the ground. Terrestrial interference spikes and cuts out, bleeding across multiple channels. The WOW signal appeared in a single channel and faded cleanly on both sides. It behaved like a point in the sky. The frequency was near 1420 megahertz, the hydrogen line, the frequency at which neutral hydrogen atoms naturally emit radio waves, internationally protected from earthly broadcasts, because every radio astronomer in the world listens there. The bandwidth was under 10 kilohertz. Natural astrophysical sources spread across hundreds of kilohertz, smeared by motion and turbulence. A signal this narrow almost always means one thing: an artificial transmitter. John Krauss, director of the Ohio State Radio Observatory, later wrote to Carl Sagan describing the signal as highly suggestive of extraterrestrial intelligent origin, and noted that no other signal like it has been observed in all the years of our sky surveys. Krauss wrote that in 1994, 17 years after the signal, and even then, he stopped short of a definitive claim. By 1994, the signal had already run into its deepest problem. Big Ear had 2 feed horns, 2 receivers pointed at slightly different patches of sky, separated by about 3 minutes of observing time. A real celestial source would pass through the first horn, then through the second. The WOW signal appeared in one horn. The second horn swept the same position 3 minutes later. Nothing. Silence. 1s and 2s. Eamon told Live Science in 2017, "We should have seen the source come through twice in about 3 minutes. One response lasting 72 seconds, and a second response for 72 seconds, following within about a minute and a half. They did not. Whatever produced the signal either switched off within 3 minutes, or existed for less than 72 seconds total. The telescope cannot tell you which. Neither can any instrument that came after it. Because of the single horn detection, astronomers cannot say which horn caught it. The source has 2 possible positions in the sky. Not one location. One of 2. Astronomers pointed other telescopes at those coordinates. Robert H. Gray, the first independent researcher to mount a dedicated follow-up, started searching in 1994 using the Harvard-Smithsonian Metasystem. Nothing. Gray tried again in 2001 with the Very Large Array in New Mexico. Nothing. He tried again in 2002 with a 26-meter dish in Hobart, Tasmania. Nothing. The Allen Telescope Array searched in 2020. A separate team searched Arecibo data in 2022. Mendez and colleagues wrote in 2025, the signal has not been observed again despite extensive subsequent observations. 5 efforts. 5 silences. In 2016, astronomer Antonio Paris published a paper proposing the signal came from hydrogen gas clouds surrounding 2 comets, 266P Christensen and 335P Gibbs, neither cataloged in 1977. No one had checked because neither comet was known to exist at the time. The argument was clean. The comets would have been near the WOW signal's position in 1977. Hydrogen clouds around comets do emit radio waves. Several news outlets declared the mystery solved. Then Amon looked at the numbers. He told Live Science directly, "We do not believe the 2 comets theory can explain the WOW signal. Comets do not emit narrowband radio waves below 10 kilohertz. Hydrogen from a comet is Doppler smeared. It does not produce a sharp spike." Second, when researchers checked the comet's position during the 2016 retest, it was roughly 2 degrees north of the WOW signal's measured declination. Third, and most damaging, a slowly drifting comet would have appeared in both horns. The WOW signal did not. The Comet Theory required you to believe a slowly moving gas cloud switched off in exactly the 3-minute window between the 2 horns. The record does not support it. The mystery had just been tested and survived. In 2024 and 2025, a team led by Abel Mendez at the University of Puerto Rico at Arecibo fed all 75,000 pages of Big Ear archive data through optical character recognition software and read every number the telescope ever recorded. The signal was stronger than anyone had calculated. Previous estimates ranged from 54 to 212 Janskys. The full reanalysis put the figure at approximately 250 Janskys. The original printout had understated it. And there was something else in those 75,000 pages. 2 more signals. The team called them WOW2 and WOW3. Similar bell curve profiles, far weaker. The original Ohio team had circled them and identified them as compact cold hydrogen clouds. Cold hydrogen clouds. The original Ohio team had noted them and moved on. Nobody followed up. Decades passed. Now those quiet notations had a new meaning. Mendez's team also found similar signals in Arecibo observatory data from early 2020. Different telescope, different hemisphere, same profile type. They proposed a mechanism that did not exist as a concept until the early 1990s, more than a decade after the original signal. The hypothesis, a superradiance event, a masser-like flare from a cold interstellar hydrogen cloud, triggered by a burst from a magnetar, a neutron star with a magnetic field 1 trillion times stronger than Earth's. The cloud re-emits only while the magnetar energizes it. Narrowband, brief, a precise bell curve rising out of silence. Magnetars were not theorized until the early 1990s. In 1977, there was no framework to even ask the question. The physics was not yet in anyone's hands. The superradiance hypothesis explains the non-repetition. A magnetar flare is rare and brief. After the flare, the cloud goes cold. No telescope pointed afterward would detect anything. It also explains the single horn detection. If the magnetar flare was short enough, a minute or 2, the cloud might re-emit only while the first horn was watching. By the time the second horn swept past, the energy source had already died. The 2025 reanalysis also narrowed the source position. Previous uncertainty covered about 22 arc minutes. The new figure, 7.25 arc minutes. A smaller target. Not small enough for a single star, but smaller. But the paper is still under peer review as of 2025, not confirmed. The magnetar that would have triggered the flare has not been identified. The hydrogen cloud has not been confirmed at that position. Mendez himself wrote, "The WOW signal remains an enigmatic outlier, representing a tantalizing hint of potential extraterrestrial communication, while underscoring the challenges inherent in distinguishing genuine signals from cosmic noise and terrestrial interference." Now go back to the beginning. Eamon spent years urging caution after that moment. His 1997 paper warned against drawing vast conclusions from, in his own words, half-vast data. John Krauss and Robert Dixon had written in 1974, "No radiation can be classed as of intelligent origin until all mechanisms of producing that radiation by natural means have been thoroughly investigated and understood." That was the foundation of the project. The Big Ear telescope was demolished in early 1998. The land became a golf course and housing development. Its archives survived only because volunteers carried boxes of paper printouts out of the building before the bulldozers arrived. More than 75,000 pages of paper. The original digital data, largely gone. The telescope that could have rescanned the same patch of sky in the same configuration, gone. Destroyed before the question was answered. The Ohio SETI project ran from December 1973 to December 1997. 22 years. The longest-running SETI program in history. In all that time, across all those pages, the telescope heard one thing it could not explain. Once. 72 seconds. Put yourself at that kitchen table on August 19th, 1977. You find 6 characters that should not be there. You circle them. You write one word. You cannot know whether you are looking at physics no one had yet named, or something built. The 6EQUJ5 sequence is not a message. Eamon was explicit. It is a record of intensity over 6 10-second bins, numbers describing how loud the signal was, not what it said. No encoding, no modulation, no information in the string itself. The signal is real, strong, narrowband, at the hydrogen line, with a Gaussian profile consistent with a fixed point in the sky. It has never been detected again. No confirmed terrestrial explanation has been found. No confirmed extraterrestrial explanation has been found. The superradiance hypothesis is the most recent explanation with observational support. If confirmed, the WOW signal becomes a record of a cold hydrogen cloud briefly energized by a magnetar flare. Extraordinary physics, not a transmission. For 72 seconds, something in the direction of Sagittarius emitted a narrowband signal at the hydrogen frequency, at an intensity no natural process then understood could produce. It left a bell curve on a piece of paper. Then it stopped. The telescope that heard it is gone. The signal is preserved on paper, in a box, in an archive. The only open question that matters is whether the thing that produced those 6 characters was physics we had not yet discovered, or something else entirely.